And welcome back, and continuing with the coronavirus story, moving from the UK to France. Now, French President Emmanuel Macron has announced strict measures to enforce a lockdown similar to those being implemented in Italy and Spain, saying, and I quote, "We're in a health war." Unquote. Now, he says the European Union's external borders would be closed to travellers from today. And President Cyril Ramaphosa did not put France down as one of the high-risk countries, but the country had already advised its citizens to stay home and not travel. And joining us now from our Pretoria studio is France's ambassador to South Africa, Aurélien Lechevallier. Ambassador, thanks so much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much, Sakina. It's great to be with you this morning.
Now, Ambassador, unprecedented times, of course, and just looking at some of the stats, because your head of health services yesterday indicated how fast the situation was deteriorating in France. So looking at the numbers that our producers put down yesterday, 5,423 cases, 127 deaths reported and 12 recovered. And looking at the live system tracking what's happening across the world, those confirmed cases are now over 6,630 with 148 deaths and still 12 recovered. So it is a drastic situation, and your president having an announcement on TV last night. But just talk to us about what exactly is going on in France at the moment.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, of course, the crisis is still increasing. We have an ever-growing number of cases. We saw that in Asia. Now it comes to Europe, and unfortunately, it's becoming a global crisis. So we have to be very tough. As President Macron said, it's a war. It's a war against the epidemic, against the pandemic, and it requires very strict enforced measures to avoid social contacts, to stop the crisis. And to stop the propagation all around our different countries. So the President Macron said yesterday that basically the people in France, they have to stay home for at least 15 days. It's not exactly a full lockdown as we see in Italy, but people are strictly asked to stay home. And maybe to go out only for very urgent matters, like to go to the supermarket, to go to the doctor, but to avoid going to the office, and basically to avoid any unrequired social contact. And it is coming into force this morning. Of course, the schools are closed, the universities are closed, and this is the situation now we're living in.
Ambassador, the president did allude to the fact, though, that people don't seem to be taking this as seriously as they should, because even with medics warning against the gravity of the situation, people were still gathering in parks, people were still going out to bars and congregating. And the president saying that there would be 100,000 officers deployed in order to enforce the lockdown. Explain that a little more to us, please.
Yeah, I think it's very important because, it's like South Africa. We are a democracy, so we cannot lock people down in their house. We have to rely also on their responsibility. So it's individual responsibility and collective responsibility. And I think that people, they have to be really aware that the crisis now is very, very serious. We want to avoid, of course, casualties, and to prevent also long-term consequences, social consequences, economic consequences. So the people have to take this very, very seriously. In a democracy, we rely on people to act and to follow the instructions, to stick to the instructions. And so now, really, we have to abide by this enforcement, and to stay home and to work from home. And to stay with the very close family home to prevent any unnecessary moves. And yes, it will have to be also controlled by more security forces, by more police, because this is a matter of health for everybody in France, in Europe, and elsewhere in the world. So we have to be very, very serious about it.
Ambassador Lechevallier, please, I'm going to ask you to please just stay put for us. We just want to take news headlines, and then I'll come back to conclude this interview with you. And for that, of course, I'm going to hand you over to Leanne to bring you the latest news headlines, and then we'll continue this conversation with the French ambassador to South Africa. Leanne.